How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any other week, if you want a chance at one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below with your question, and I'll try to answer each and every question that I can. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week, and it is, what is an update on the current recall for the high pressure fuel pumps? So I'll list the vehicles that it affects. So if your car is possibly affected, you'll be notified, and you can see and maybe contact your local dealer about it. So there is finally a update and a repair procedure for it. So that is great. So unlike a lot of other recalls, this one does seem to be getting sorted out pretty quick. And part of the reason for that is being because majority of them will just need a inspection. So I made a video on this last week, or actually this week that just passed. So I'll make sure I attach that video in the description section down below if you want to go ahead and see kind of how the process is. And most of them will just be the inspection. Some of them will need a pump replacement. When I get one of those, if and when I get one of those, then I'll make a video on that procedure. But as far as now, all we're doing is essentially taking a hydrocarbon meter and measuring it and sniffing it out, see if there is any leaks in that area. We also visually look at the fuel pump. Now, if there's a visual leak, then it fails right there. It needs a pump. If there's no visual leak, then we take our meter and we have to sample it for a total of 1 minute and make sure it reads absolutely zero. Anything above that, it's no good and requires a pump replacement. So we have done a few in the shop. We thought we had one on Saturday that may have needed it. It failed the first time, but I think the test was just glitchy. So we did it 3 more times after that, and it passed every single time. And we checked the tester by actually forcing it into the fuel tank to actually measure and sniff out those fumes. So we knew that the tester was good. And again, we tested it 3 additional times and it passed every time. So like anything else, there could be flukes. So you have to always consider that even your equipment could be faulty. So Honda is going to send us a second tester, but they sent us just one for now. Make sure every dealer in the nation has one so they could do this recall. So hopefully that answers the question for you. So this next question is, what is my thoughts on the newly announced ADX? So the ADX is essentially Acura's version of the HR-V. So what's my biggest complaint with the HR-V? It is underpowered, which I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth here, and the ADX addresses. Unfortunately, it addresses that way with the 1.5T, which we know can be very problematic. So I like that they address that issue, although I don't like that they use the 1.5T. I think a detuned 2.0T would have been a much better option, although that may have kind of messed with some of the sales for the RDX. So I think that's why they went with the 1.5T, and maybe just fits in there a little bit better. But yeah, so I do like the idea of the car. I think it's going to be fun. You could get optional all-wheel drive, turbo, K-Tune or Honda will probably dabble their hands in there and, get some flashes out for these cars and make them extremely fun to drive. Unfortunately, it still has the 1.5T, which will lead to some issues, but it does address my issue with the HR-V. So I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I would still get one personally if I was in the market for one. Knowing what it has, knowing that I can fix it myself as a normal consumer, I would absolutely advise you. And this is not just for this car, this is for any new car. Get the Acura extended warranty for sure with it, because if something goes and happens down the line, it'll be well worth the money. So hopefully that answers the question for you. This next question is, and I kind of see this a lot at my shop. So the car gets towed in, vehicle has an issue, it doesn't start. So now this person was curious on their dealer had an issue with the car not starting. Now it has a new issue. Now, when you bring your car into me and the car doesn't start, I can't hear anything. I can't test drive it. I can't feel for vibrations. I can't smell for fumes. I can't do any of that stuff. Before anything, I got to get that vehicle started. And we have these multi-point inspection videos, which I love because I myself say, listen, your car needs, let's say, a PCM to get it started. We don't know the condition that the car is here because it came in on a tow truck. So this is where we need to do to get your vehicle started. Anything after that, then we'll have to address it in an according way and fashion. So that covers me, because the customer can't say, well, this car didn't have this issue. Well, I didn't know that. I don't know if you're, being honest or not with me, because the car when it got here didn't run. So there's no way for me to know. And something could have happened to the car also in that time that it didn't start to making it to the dealer. A lot of things could have happened. So that covers everyone on a basis. And I let you know in advance that there may be an additional issue, because once again, this vehicle doesn't run, doesn't drive, or anything like that. So 9 out of 10 times, people are very understanding. Everything works out smoothly. Once in a while, you get a person that says, well, my transmission was fine before it came here. Well, how do I know? The car didn't run. So you always get people that are slick like that. There could be something that, if it was a different issue, let's say you needed an engine and now the technician broke a shift linkage because he had to take out the transmission with the engine. Yes, so that was caused by the technician, and the customer has a right to be upset at that point. But in most cases, everything works out. The video idea of the multi-point inspection is great. It's phenomenal. Covers everyone. I say what I got to say. An advisor can't go and change my words around, which I like, because most of them are not technicians. They are just salespeople. And that's an important key and role. And understanding and being, knowing what the technician is saying and relaying that to the customer. So that the fact that the customer heard it from me and the advisor, just giving them the prices and availability, the timeline and stuff like that is great, because I spoke what I had to say, and there's no loss in translation as far as that goes. So that being said, hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so the next question is adding a spoiler to your vehicle, whether it's aftermarket or OEM, and you have to drill holes into it to get the holes and the studs through to put some nuts on it. So the question is there a concern for a leak? So absolutely. Usually if it's OEM, it comes sealed properly, everything like that. What I like to personally do when installing these type of things is adding just a little bit of Honda Bond to the edge of that hole. And when the bolt seats down, you have the Honda Bond there, making an extra tight seal, ensuring that there's absolutely no water going to be entering that trunk or hatch when it rains or you go through car washes or whatnot. So I also like to make the holes as small as possible, because if you have a huge hole and the spoilers possibly shifted around in there, the gasket could be moving, and obviously also that could be a area where water goes past that seal. So I personally like to make the holes as small as possible to where the spoiler goes in just perfectly fine, and add a little bit of Honda Bond. Honda Bond seals oil, seals coolant, so there's no reason that it can't seal water from going past it. So that's what I personally like to do. I've never had an issue doing it like that, and you don't have to go crazy with the Honda Bond. Just a little bit, it's a small layer, and a little bit goes a long way. So hopefully that answers the question for you, and if it gets done properly, you shouldn't have any issues. Last but not least, question of the week. And once again, if you have a question you possibly want to answer, make sure you drop a comment down below, and I'll try to get it into each and every one of those questions. So the question is getting into a little bit more details of what can and can't avoid warranty as far as the exhaust system goes. So if you do like an axle back or a cat back, the only thing that could potentially be avoided is that axle back or cat back system. So obviously if it rots out, Honda's not going to cover that because it's an aftermarket system. Now, if you break something along the lines of installing it, then obviously that's not something Honda's going to cover as well. Anything past the secondary O2 sensor. So each vehicle has at least 2 O2 sensors. On 4 cylinders, there's only 2 of them. If it's a 6-cylinder, sometimes it'll have a 3, sometimes it'll have 2, sometimes it'll have 4. It really depends on the setup, but every car will have at least 2. So anything past the second O2 sensor, if there's a leak or anything, won't cause an issue. Now, if there's a leak between the first one and the second one, it could cause we've seen a lot of times, a cat code just from a crack on a flange or anything like that. If you modify the catalytic converter and you break something or a check engine light comes on, again, obviously Honda's not going to cover that catalytic converter because it's either A, catless, or B, a high flow cat, and it's not being as efficient as the ECU wants it to be. So if you break anything along the way, a stud or anything like that on the turbo, which a lot of people break on these turbo engines, usually the 2.0s and the 1.5Ts when modifying them, again, Honda's not going to cover that because if you hadn't touched it, it would have never broken. So if you want to ensure that nothing void your warranty, avoid doing an aftermarket catalytic converter. Anything post that second O2 sensor is not going to cause any issues. Most of them are right on the downpipe. So right before the cat or on the turbo will be the primary sensor. And then right after the cat cell or cells is going to be the secondary O2 sensor. So anything, again, past that secondary O2 sensor, the ECU has no reading after that. So you should be fine. So hopefully that answers the question for you. And I'll catch you on the next one.